Welcome to TheEroticIntellectuals.blogspot.com, your news source for news. I am Mac Mitchell, host of The Mitchell Report, and without delay, I'll spare you my humble opinion and simply bring you the news. Tonight's top story, terror before and after Iraq. One measure of the impact of the Iraq War is the precipitous drop in public support for the United States in Muslim countries. Jordan, a key U.S. ally, saw popular approval for the United States drop from 25% in 2002 to 1% in 2003. In Lebanon, during the same period, favorable views of the United States dropped from 30% to 15%, and in the world's largest Muslim country, Indonesia, favorable views plummeted from 61% to 15%. Disliking the United States does not make you a terrorist, but clearly the pool of Muslims who dislike the United States has grown by hundreds of millions since the Iraq War began. The United States' plummeting popularity does not suggest active popular support for jihadist terrorists, but it does imply some sympathy with their anti-American posture, which means a significant swath of the Muslim population cannot be relied on as an effective party in counterterrorism insurgency measures. And so, popular contempt for U.S. policy has become a force multiplier for Islamist militants. The Iraq War has also encouraged Muslim youth around the world to join jihadist groups, not necessarily directly tied to Al-Qaeda, but often motivated by a similar ideology. The Iraq War allowed Al-Qaeda, which was on the ropes in 2002 after the United States had captured or killed two-thirds of its leadership, to reinvent itself as a broader movement because Al-Qaeda's central message, that the United States is at war with Islam, was judged by significant numbers of Muslims to have been corroborated by the war in Iraq, and compounding this, the wide dissemination of the exploits of jihadist groups in Iraq following the invasion energized potential and actual jihadists across the world. How exactly has the Iraq effect played out in different parts of the world? The effect has not been uniform. Europe, the Arab world, and Afghanistan all saw major rises in jihadist terrorism in the periods after the invasion of Iraq, while Pakistan and India and the Chechnya-Russia front saw only smaller increases in jihadist terrorism. And in Southeast Asia, attacks and killings by jihadist groups fell by over 60% in the period after the Iraq War. The strength or weakness of the Iraq effect on jihadist terrorism in a particular country seems to be influenced by four factors. 1. If the country itself has troops in Iraq. 2. Geographical proximity to Iraq. 3. The degree of identification with Iraq's Arabs felt in the country. And 4. The level of exchanges of ideas or personnel with Iraqi jihadist groups. This may explain why jihadist groups in Europe, Arab countries, and Afghanistan were more affected by the Iraq War than groups in other regions. Europe, unlike Kashmir, Chechnya, and Southeast Asia, for example, contains several countries that are part of the coalition in Iraq. It is relatively geographically close to the Arab world and has a large Arab Muslim diaspora from which jihadists have recruited. European intelligence services are deeply concerned about the effect of the Iraq War. For example, Dame Eliza Manningham-Buller, the head of Britain's MI5, stated on November 10, 2006, "In Iraq, attacks are regularly videoed, and the footage is downloaded onto the internet, and chillingly, we see the results here. Young teenagers are being groomed to be suicide bombers. We are aware of numerous plots to kill people and damage our economy, 30 that we know of. The threat is serious, is growing, and I believe will be with us for a generation." Startlingly, a recent poll found that a quarter of British Muslims believe that the July 7, 2005 London bombings were justifiable because of British foreign policy, bearing out Dame Eliza's concern about a new generation of radicals in the United Kingdom. While Islamist militants in Europe are mobilized by a series of grievances such as Palestine, Afghanistan, the Kashmir conflict in Chechnya, no issue has resonated more in radical circles and on Islamist websites than the war in Iraq. This can be seen in the skyrocketing rate of jihadist terrorist attacks around the Arab world outside of Iraq. There have been 37 attacks in Arab countries outside of Iraq since the invasion, while there were only 3 in the period between 9/11 and March 2003. The rate of attacks in Arab countries jumped by 445% since the Iraq invasion, while the rate of killings rose by 783%. The November 9, 2005 bombings of 3 American hotels in Amman, Jordan that killed 60, an operation directed by Abu Musab al-Zawahiri's Al-Qaeda in Iraq network, was the most direct manifestation of the Iraq effect in the Arab world. Saudi Arabia in particular has seen an upsurge in jihadist terrorism since the U.S. invasion of Iraq. There were no jihadist terrorist attacks between 9/11 and the Iraq War, but 12 in the period since. The reason for the surge in terrorism was a decision taken by Al-Qaeda's Saudi branch in the spring of 2003 to launch a wave of attacks, primarily at Western targets, to undermine the Saudi royal family. These attacks were initiated on May 12, 2003, with the bombing of Western compounds in Riyadh, killing 34, including 10 Americans. While Saudi authorities believe that the planning and training for the operation predated the war in Iraq, the timing of the attack, just weeks after the U.S. invasion, is striking. I'm Mac Mitchell. This has been the Mitchell Report for TheEroticIntellectuals.blogspot.com.